Well, that's a wrap on a pretty poor Penguins 4-game road trip through Canada. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and the National Hockey Now YouTube channel. This is Rogers Place behind me, or Rogers Arena. Sorry, Rogers Place was in Edmonton. I feel like we're all a little bit worse for wear after these 4 games, and certainly the Penguins are as well. They drop all 4, going 0-3-1. Their only point, a shootout loss, a 6-round shootout loss to the Calgary Flames. And there is a lot of storylines to unpack, but let's go to the big one. What is the Penguins' biggest problem and how to address it? Now, I know many of you are going to jump straight to Mike Sullivan, and you're going to blame me for not jumping straight there, but I am going to put Sullivan in the same pot as the biggest problem, because here's what Sullivan isn't doing right now. He is not dropping the hammer on the biggest problems, which unfortunately for the Penguins are their star players. The Penguins' best players are the guys letting them down. They're the ones making the most mistakes. They are the ones making ghastly mistakes, either jumping up at the red line like Erik Karlsson did. Daniel Sprong just blows past him like he was selling Bibles on the freeway. Karlsson lets JT Miller behind him, and then Miller just kind of throws a shoulder and throws Karlsson off of him to poke home the rebound. Erik Karlsson has not been good this season. He told reporters a couple of days ago, I think we were in Edmonton, it all runs together, that he thought he was playing great. He was asked, okay, what do you think of your game to this point? It's like, great. Really? Great. Okay. So there's that. There's even Sidney Crosby making mistakes. Now, Crosby's big mistake on Saturday night in Vancouver might have been not trusting Erik Karlsson. Crosby left his post on the first Vancouver goal, comes down to the net. That opens up a canyon in the slot. Elias Pettersson fills that, snaps it home. And that's part of the Penguins' dynamic, adaptive defensive scheme versus a positional scheme. Sure, a positional scheme might have fixed all that, but I mean, do you really think the Penguins players, their star players, are guys who can go to a spot and not think? Exactly. The funny thing is, the irony of irony here, involving Mike Sullivan. This is what I wrote on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. We're here in Vancouver, not just where Sidney Crosby scored the golden goal, which is actually the other end of the ice. But this is the arena where Mike Sullivan assisted John Tortorella for 1 season with the Canucks. And it went so terribly wrong that Tortorella and Sullivan, after a very healthy career together, Tampa, New York, and then to Vancouver, that the pair haven't coached together since. And really what happened was Tortorella brought his brand of sandpaper against star players to Vancouver. They went right after the Sedin twins, trying to get the Sedins to conform to Tortorella's vision of how the team should be. Now, I've heard various stories, and Mike Sullivan was basically Tortorella's hammer, both in New York and then Vancouver. He was on the front line. Well, that went horribly wrong. The team rebelled. Tortorella and Sullivan lost the team. They were out a year later. Sullivan, I think, has learned from that lesson. When he first came to Pittsburgh, he established himself, but there wasn't friction with top players. I think Sullivan is getting to a point now with this Penguins team, there's some friction needed. There are some very loud messages that need to be sent. The same mistakes over and over and over again, not just over the course of 10 games this season. That would be silly to take that sample size and extrapolate it to big issues. No. These issues are going back all the way to the beginning of last season. Some of these issues go further back than that, to the 22 season, when the Penguins had their collapse and the 95% playoff, or 95% chance to make the playoffs very quickly became zero. There is a sea change that is needed. There is more accountability that is needed. Mike Sullivan gave a very good long quote when we asked tonight about why things go so wrong for the Penguins so quickly. Sidney Crosby kind of nodded and gave a shorter answer. Sullivan went point by point through all of the mistakes that the Penguins are making. What he didn't say, what I'm saying, is it's all the star players making these mistakes. I'm losing my voice, so we're going to wrap this up here. It has been it's been an arduous road trip, and it won't get any easier getting home on Sunday. I think I go through like 8 cities before I get to Pittsburgh around 10 o'clock. But I do it for you guys. Please like, subscribe here on the YouTube channel. Of course, check out Pittsburgh Hockey Now, and subscribe to PHM Plus too. We'll be putting some more content this week. Some of Francis Anzalone's videos will start going behind the paywall. You've seen how just brilliant, and here's a guy who's been inside the Penguins who's bringing some of that knowledge to us, and we're grateful. So check out Pittsburgh Hockey Now. I will probably need a few hours to get my voice back, and this team is never boring. That is for sure, but they've got big problems, and it is now on Sullivan to solve them. He can't fear what happened in Vancouver. He can't fear losing the team, because that's exactly what's going to happen if he doesn't address them. Okay, from Rogers Arena, not Rogers Place, here in Vancouver, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and the National Hockey Now YouTube channel.